Scott. So while we're waiting for Ms. Ambassador Kraft to take the stage right now, we're going to watch a little bit because we know there'll be some preliminary speaking. Let's say some things here.
Yeah, Kelly Kraft's been one of the most important.
Day after day, made sacrifices and supported us no matter what. And I've been humbled by this support. And I want to say a special thank you to my family, especially to my husband, Joe. And to my brother and my sister and their spouses that are here this evening, and my nephew, Will. And my grandson, my favorite grandson, Jake. Let me just tell you, my favorite right here. And thank you to the most incredible running mate that any candidate could possibly wish for. A man of work ethic, a man of God, a wife that is just such a strong supporter with her own career. I mean, just look at this family, right? What a perfect example of the American dream. While it is true that I am disappointed this evening, but we have so much to celebrate. I know that our movement has had lasting impressions on Kentuckians across the Commonwealth. And the Kentuckians that I've met have made a lasting, forever impact on me. I would rather be in this room tonight than any other room with a different result. You have challenged me, you have given me your trust and confidence, and I will never take this for granted. We all left it all on the table. I have looked into the eyes of hardworking, extraordinary, welcoming citizens of our strong state. You welcomed me into your homes, offered me a seat at your table, and entrusted me with your aspirations, your dreams, and your heartache. I may have arrived as a stranger to many, but I left as your friend. I see a land of opportunity and a world of potential for the future generations across the Bluegrass. And I'm hopeful that each and every child and grandchild here in Kentucky will have the tools they need to achieve their wildest dreams. That's why I was running, for our children and for our grandchildren's future. And when I got into this race, I knew this was going to be tough. But this is a job that needs to be done. And my love for Kentucky is strong and everlasting. And while I've been inspired by thousands of Kentuckians I've met, this campaign has also had its tough moments. I knew we would be attacked by Democrats, but I never in a million years thought that the attack would come from my opponents, to my family. I guess if you're a politician, you're used to that. But I've always tried to believe the best in others, even when they act with hate in their hearts. So thank you all, each and every one of you, for standing with Joe and me and our family and the Wise family. It has been my daily devotion, a place of connection, to have sat and prayed at over 100 tables and had thousands of one-on-one conversations with what each of you represent in this room. And within the families in Kentucky, I know where God is. I met him at your table. We met him together, and he shined on us together. It has not been a campaign. This has been a revival. I just want you to know that with each of you, that the gift that you've given me bears the responsibility to carry your voice, to carry all the thousands of Kentuckians that I've set across the table as my guide, as my compass for the direction of our state. And while I'm disappointed in tonight's results, we must now come together, united as one Republican Party, to defeat Andy Beshear in November.
Amen.
So you just heard Kelly Craft giving her concession speech in the Republican primary for governor, and we will have the entirety of that speech on our website tomorrow morning. You just heard her make a very pivotal statement at the end about unifying behind the nominee, Attorney General Daniel Cameron, and that's what we were waiting to hear. Yeah. Trey Grayson, right?
Yeah, I remember when I ran in 2010 in my primary, which was pretty divisive and the party was pretty divided. I remember talking to actually Senator McConnell about what do you say on election night, win or lose? And he said the reality is a concession speech and a victory speech in a primary are pretty similar. You thank your people, you repeat your message, and then you try to bring the party together. If you're the losing candidate, you need to do what Ambassador Craft did, is to pivot and say to your supporters, you should support our party's nominee. And if you're the winner, which General Cameron will be speaking shortly, you need to be able to reach out with the olive branch to your opponents to say, come together, we have more in common than we do as differences. But it's an emotional night. She broke down a couple of times. It's tough.
Yeah, she said it's not a campaign, but a revival, yeah. And she did have her voice crackling there. But she also had some other comments, though, that perhaps...
There was a little bit of a jab on, I never imagined people would come, go after me and my family in a primary. And I would say, look, that's a primary. It's an election. It's especially in a primary where on the issues, these candidates were all pretty similar. They had similar views. They might have had different emphases. They might have talked about them in different ways, but on the issues, there was not a lot of disagreement. And so that means you're going to campaign on personality, on experiences, on things you maybe did in your past, or on things maybe taking positions out of context. And in some respects, this primary attacks, because it's in the family, it's just harder. It hits harder, and that's just the reality.
So she says she's going to be behind the nominee. So does that mean that she'll be at the Unity rally on Saturday? And will she appear with him and go out with him and do all the things? Or could she potentially be running mate material?
I don't think so.
On the running mate, I think, as he was answering the second.
Right, yes, he was answering that one, I know.
Yeah, she'll be at the Unity rally, but, what she's talking about there, attacks on her and her family, the back and forth she had with Cameron about Joe Craft, who, let it be understood, is the money behind this campaign. And I thought it was telling that Max Wise said, we thank Joe and Kelly Craft for this opportunity to run with them. If she had finished a strong second, she would have been an appealing running mate for Cameron, partly because they've got all that money. They could put it into the campaign. But now that she is running third and is probably going to remain there, I don't think there's much percentage in putting her on the ticket. It seems pretty clear that Ryan Quarles is the best choice for Cameron as a running mate, something he has to do by about August 3rd, I think.
So, Bob, real quickly.
Yes, ma'am. You could definitely conclude that candidates who weren't successful tonight in the governor's race and down the ballot can certainly make another try, have another run. They ran well enough. They weren't hurt, let's say, but they weren't successful. They could run again. And I think you'll see even down ballot some of those folks who lost come back on the Republican side. It's a deep bench. It's a lot of potential there. And for Democrats, too, not having the bench that they used to have, that's the job for the future.
So right now you see and the configuration that Ryan Quarles is making a speech, and he is giving some salutations there right now and recognizing some folks. So we'll kind of talk over this until he gets to the meat of what he'd like to say. So Ryan Quarles, what's next for him?
Yeah, Ryan had some of the most experience in the race. I mean, he'd been in the legislature for 2.5 terms, two-term ag commissioner. Everybody agrees he was a great agriculture commissioner, and obviously has finished second place tonight, unless something changes, which I think is an overperformance based on some of the polling that we had seen. So that's an honorable and good, strong finish for him. I think he would make a strong consideration for running mate as well. I mean, the reality is Ryan has been one of the most successful state government operators that the Republican Party has had in Frankfort for the last several years, by the way, with some management experience. You know, the Ag Department is a pretty big agency, and so that's not to be discounted. And he drove all over the state. I don't think in the last 20 years has anybody put more miles on the car than Ryan Quarles. And by the way, that's important.
Yeah. So let's go in and listen to him right now, because he's talking about how much rain inside and as a farmer, and today's some rain. Here he is.
Say special things. But I think it's just the next chapter in our journey together on this earth, because God has a plan for each and every one of us, including myself. And my message to the other victors tonight, who will be representing the Republican Party as a slate: we must all unite. We must all come together after tonight. Because if we are going to defeat Andy this year, we have all come together, and it starts right now. And it starts right now. And as for me, for somebody that grew up on a tobacco farm just a few miles north of here, only in America can you grow up working at age 6 for $1 an hour, that you can go on to University of Kentucky, that you can go on and get a graduate degree somewhere, run for the state legislature at age 25. I didn't get to serve in statewide office, not once but twice, as Commissioner of Agriculture, and then have a shot to run for governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Only in America can something like that happen. I'm proud of our country. I'm proud of our country. And so tonight, I'd like to end my remarks with one of the first Kentuckians, Daniel Boone, who said that heaven must be a Kentucky kind of place. And I would have to agree with him tonight. God bless you. God bless the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart.
So that is Ryan Quarles, the current
Good job,
giving
Ryan
his concession speech. He did come in second place in the Republican primary for governor. And right now, we're going to switch our box over, because Daniel Cameron, the nominee for the Republican nominee for governor, is right on the stage, and we're going to go to him live right now.
You are my rock. You are my inspiration. And you are a Proverbs 31 woman. And I am blessed by you. And let me just say, won't she make one heck of a first lady?
Oh, what happened?
And thank you to all of you that are in this room tonight, and to those of you that are watching at home that made this win a reality. And of course, a big thank you to President Donald J. Trump for his support and his endorsement of this campaign. Let me just say, the Trump culture of winning is alive and well in Kentucky. You and I together, we proved that no obstacle is too great, no barrier is too large, when concerned and committed Kentuckians come together around a common purpose and vision rooted in ideals that have propelled this nation forward since its very beginning. Those ideals being faith, family, and community. Our Commonwealth and this country were built on these ideals, and all I have tried to do in this primary is be a voice for those principles. And this campaign has tried to embody the promise of America, that if you work hard and if you stand on principle, anything is possible. And tonight we proved that. Tonight we proved that here in Kentucky, the American dream is alive and well, because here in Kentucky, you aren't judged by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character.
Amen.
So to anyone who looks like me, know that you can achieve anything. Know that in this country and in Kentucky, all that matters are your values. But I've got some disappointing news. Sadly, Andy Beshear wants you to believe that dream doesn't exist anymore. He wants you to believe that dream and those ideals are old-fashioned. The new religion of the left casts doubt on the greatness of America. They embrace a picture of this country and this Commonwealth that is rooted in division, that is hostile to faith, and that is committed to the erosion of our education system. Andy Beshear is resigned to live in a Commonwealth where violent crime is high and the workforce participation rate is low. He's content to preside over the abandonment of our inner cities and the desolation of our rural communities. Now, the governor during this election will try to take credit for things done by our Republican legislature. But no amount of window dressing will absolve him of his actual record. Our people are smart. The governor cannot pretend to have hit a triple when everybody else knows that he was born on third base.
That's right. That's right.
Play ball. Play ball. That's right. Play ball. Since he has become governor, Kentucky has 27,000 fewer men and women working. Our workforce participation rate is lower than it's ever been. Violent crime runs rampant in our largest cities. Fentanyl is ravaging our communities. The left is trying to hijack women's sports. And our schools are on the verge of becoming breeding grounds for liberal and progressive ideas. But rather than face these issues head on, this governor sits idly by. Rather than promote a culture of work, he told people to stay home for 2 years. And rather than create a culture of collaboration between the Kentucky State Police and local law enforcement, he's opted instead to sit on his hands and turn a blind eye to a statewide increase in crime.
Amen.
And rather than hold Joe Biden accountable for his failures at the southern border, he embraces the far left's open border policies. He vetoed legislation that would have stopped biological men from competing in women's sports. And rather than speak out in support of parents and grandparents who have been called domestic terrorists by the Department of Justice simply because they care about what their children are learning in school, he said absolutely nothing. I'm here to tell you tonight that a governor who will not speak out on these issues and who will not stand up for your interests has abdicated his responsibility to the Commonwealth and is not fit to lead it any longer.
Amen.
And new leadership is needed now more than ever. Look at what Andy Beshear has done to our education system. Now, when he became governor, he appointed a new Board of Education. And that Board of Education hired a new education commissioner for the state by the name of Jason Glass.
Shameful.
Now, Mr. Glass recently said that any teacher who expressed concerns about the gender ideology curriculum that's making its way into our schools, that teacher should find another job. Andy Beshear's education commissioner told hard-working teachers, and I know there are a lot of them. My wife, Mackenzie, taught for about 7 years in the Oldham County school system. We love our teachers here in Kentucky, and the Republican Party loves our teachers here.
Amen.
But Jason Glass said that those hard-working teachers got to find another job because they won't buy into the far left's ideology. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the right answer. The right answer is that Jason Glass and Andy Bashir need to find another job, and we will help them do that in November.
Right. Amen.
But that is why this race is so important. And it's why it's so important that we as Republicans come together. And several of my fellow travelers on this race for governor have called me to congratulate us on our victory. And they ran spirited campaigns because, like you and me, they care deeply about the future of the Commonwealth. And they know to get Kentucky back on track, we have one mission. And that one mission is to retire Andy Bashir from the governor's office.
Amen.
And together we can do that. Together we can make that happen. Together we can have a better and brighter version of Kentucky. Together we can make sure Kentucky has a governor who stands up to Washington and against Joe Biden. Together we can empower our teachers and prioritize parents' involvement in the educational opportunities of our kids. Together we can keep our streets safe from crime and drugs. Together we can make sure our small businesses and our churches are never shut down again.
Amen.
And together we can make sure that Andy Bashir is a one-term governor. Let's go win this thing. God bless you. God bless our community.
Amen.
So you just witnessed a history-making moment with Daniel Cameron, who is accepting the nomination for Republican nominee.
Travels with John Stephenson and June Diamond Stephenson, watching the election returns.
Major political party on their own right. And
join us on Facebook or YouTube.
That this evening by a
Don't forget to listen to WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. Post Office Box 50, Falmouth, Kentucky 41040 zip code.
Ballot. And believe it or not, there are other people who are running. We'll hear
Give us a call at 859-750-0000.
We're going to have that for you as we move along this evening. So what we heard from the Attorney General there is that we love teachers.
Yes, we do.
We didn't hear that so much in 2019 from the Republican nominee for governor. Different tone here, right?
Yeah, well, Daniel is a really good politician. He's supernatural communications talent, which we saw tonight. He's already prosecuting the case in the exact way that it has to be prosecuted. You know, he's not known for being like a confrontational, sort of in his political speech, the way Bevin was. But I will tell you, after he talked about what he wants to be and his sort of values, his pivot on Bashir and going ahead and beginning to lay out the case tonight was really, really sharp. And so I think he nailed that speech. And by the way, he's married to a teacher. Mackenzie is a school teacher, and so I know he loves one. and they've got a great family in Oldham County. But I think what you saw out of Cameron tonight is that the Bashirs are dealing with some political talent here that they were not dealing with in 2019. And Cameron got a lot more votes than Andy Bashir did when they were both on a ballot together back in 2019. So I think the handicappers are likely to say this is a lean Democrat. Not so fast. I think what we saw out of Cameron, at a minimum, it's a toss-up. And when you look at the statistics in Kentucky on voters, the Republicans have a lot of momentum coming out of this tonight.
Well, Morganese, we heard Scott Jennings, when we're off here, say that perhaps Jason Glass is going to appear to be the running mate of Andy Bashir. And, of course, by the time you add on Biden, so there's a triumvirate there with Biden, Bashir, and Glass. So what does the governor do, or what do you recommend as a Democratic consultant the governor do, maybe to separate himself from Glass? I mean, he could get another job between now and whatever, but will that be enough?
I think Kelly Craft's losing message tonight about woke ideologies and dismantling the Kentucky Department of Education, getting rid of Jason Glass, that wasn't a winning message. I'm not sure that Cameron can win on that message.
I think he could win on that message, and I'm a former teacher and a former superintendent of education for the state of Kentucky. The last elected one in 1992.
Education committee and had a lot of education policy experience. Didn't work tonight. I don't think it will work in November, partly because Jason Glass is not even appointed by Governor Beshear, and he will likely have exited the state, his position at KDE at that point. And most people aren't that interested in a bureaucrat like Jason Glass. He doesn't have the same appeal as maybe some other shiny politicians.
I mean, Andy Beshear did fire the Board of Education and appoint the people who hired Jason Glass, did he not?
Which is exactly what Kelly Craft said she would do on her first day in office.
I think you are radically misunderstanding how this primary was won by Daniel Cameron, because he too is very focused on education issues. And education is the one thing that touches every single voter, whether you have kids in the schools or you went to a school or whether you want to have kids that go to the schools. This is going to be a vital topic, and people are worried about it, and I think it is going to work. And nobody really knows who Andy Beshear's current lieutenant governor is, but Jason Glass is going to be famous before this thing is over with, because he does not run this department the way most Kentuckians would run it. And yet maybe he is a faceless bureaucrat, but maybe it's time to expose the bureaucrats.
Well, Scott Jennings, we do know that Daniel Cameron thought it was a good idea of Andy Beshear's, and he adopted it, and that was, encourage a pay raise for teachers, right? I mean, he came on that bandwagon, right?
Yeah.
So, but we haven't heard beyond teacher pay increase what the education platform is of Daniel Cameron.
Well, I think the education platform is to support teachers and not bureaucrats. I mean, I think that's the whole Republican message right now, is that education policy in this country and in this state is bending towards ideological bureaucrats, and we're not letting teachers do what they're supposed to do. Teach, reading,
exactly right.
arithmetic. I mean, that's all anybody wants, is their kid to have enough education to go to college or to choose the profession that they want and pursue that dream without having ideological baggage hung all over them every step along the way, even all the way down to elementary school. This is a massive issue for voters right now, especially Republican voters. And as was pointed out, we live in a Republican state. I think it'll be resonant in November.
I don't see any evidence we've got ideological baggage being hung around children in classrooms like Kelly Craft's silly ad. But what we're talking about here is instruction that
now you don't get into the classrooms then, partner. Love you, but
historical problems of the disadvantaged and yes, the racism that does exist in society. You're not teaching woke ideologies to children, and that is just a complete misrepresentation of the
You're
facts.
wrong, Al.
To go back to what, even if the messages might be similar, so Cameron's message tonight on education might have been similar to what Kraft ran on.
Saul Alinsky's radicalization tactics
And that's, I think, what Scott
from both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
That Cameron presents. I mean, one of the questions I had back when I saw a bunch of my friends entering this race, I'm friends with the top 3 vote getters, and I've known Eric Dieters for 40 years, and Keck and Harmon, like a lot of these folks I know, is none of them had run at this level before. And so whenever you step up, you always wonder, do they have it? Do they have that ability to go? It's one thing to run. AG is a tough race, auditor's a tough race, commissioner of agriculture. These are all hard races. When you're stepping up and you're running for governor, for Congress, United States Senator, do you have the talent, the ability to do that? Daniel stepped up. Daniel grew as a politician. And on the most important night to date of his political career, he delivered a really strong message. He
gave a good speech.
He gave a great speech. I think his margin also tonight was so big that the unity message, the need to unify behind the winner, is much easier when you have nearly 50% of the vote. This reminds me a little bit of 2007, when current Governor Beshear's father pulled away in 2007, and he was able to unify that Democratic Party against an incumbent of the other party who was not popular. To be clear, I don't want to compare. Beshear is much more popular than Ernie Fletcher was, but that pulling away made that unification much easier. Cameron did that tonight. The top 2 candidates, even like Dieters apparently, has already endorsed Cameron. So the party's coming together, and that's important. That's when you're going to beat an incumbent. You have to do that early. Democrats have always been pretty good at this. I remember in 2010 in my Senate race, they really didn't do a good. Conway and Monjardo didn't come together really at all, and that division really hurt them in that race. But the Republican Party's coming together tonight, and we've got a candidate who can carry the mantle.
So for the other
Amen. You are right there, Trey.
Said that Daniel Cameron had line jumped, and they had said that he was going to be a 2-term attorney general and decided not to be, and he actually turned out to be an aspiring governor.
Sure.
Are they okay now?
Yeah, he won. Right? Like when he solves a lot of problems. The other thing I'd say about Daniel, I worked with him. He meant that when he ran for attorney general. I don't think he envisioned himself running for governor this year. I think he envisioned himself running for re-election. He did not intend. So I think he meant that. But the politics changed. The opportunity changed. He got married. He had a son. He's like, I think I want to be governor. I think I want to serve the state in that way. it's a better commute. You walk across the street from your house to your job, rather than jumping on a plane. And you have you can do things as a governor. You have a lot more impact and the ability to shape people's lives as a governor than you do as something else.
Real quickly, last one on this, Scott.
I've actually heard him say that very thing, that he thinks he can do more as governor. And I think he was appalled during the pandemic at how long the state was closed. I think he was appalled at what happened in the churches. I think he was appalled at what's going on in the schools. So I think when he started out, he could not have imagined running for governor, but I also don't think he could have imagined how bad this term would be from his perspective, and that caused him to get into this race. And nobody's ever faulted a politician for running for office. And I think you saw tonight why he's going to be a really competitive nominee.
Okay, so we had standing by Ryland Barton, who's frequently on this network. He's the managing editor of Kentucky Public Radio. Thank you for joining us for a few minutes, Ryland. Good to see you.
Hey, Renee, good to see you too.
So I don't know how much you've heard of our conversation. I know that you're busy doing your own newscast for for Louisville Public Media. So tell us about your analysis of the race and where we are right now.
Analysis of the race. I mean, I was looking back through some of the old stories over the last year, back when Daniel Cameron announced his candidacy just about a year ago, and he was the third candidate to get in the race back then. And I think that at that time, and then with him getting the Trump endorsement, it really seemed like, oh, okay, this is pretty well spelled out. And then this race started to feel a lot more competitive, especially with Kelly Craft entering into the airwaves fight and all the money that was spent among the candidates trying to jostle for place. But really, with these returns coming in, it seems like Daniel Cameron really, had the hearts and minds of Kentuckians, or at least the 10% or so of voters who may have shown up to vote today. So here's this another attorney general challenging a governor in Kentucky. We got a little bit of a history of that with Bashir doing that, challenging former Governor Bevin when he was attorney general. So it's going to have a little bit of that flavor. Attorney General Daniel Cameron having challenged Bashir several times over the course of this time when they were both in office at the same time. And we're really going to see how much the Governor Bashir's popularity and name ID that he gained so much of throughout the coronavirus pandemic, throughout all the disasters that have happened in recent years, how much that's able to hold. I thought the discussion that y'all were having about education is especially pointed one. Governor Bashir has really floated his 2019 campaign on being the teacher candidate. It's something he's really advocated for whenever he's proposing his budgets, and it seemed really during General Cameron's speech that he was, he knows that, and he's going to try to take this in a different direction. He's going to try to be a different kind of teacher candidate, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. Whether they're able to kind of whether there's a difference in discussion about this particular issue. So it's interesting to see, but it also feels a little bit like history repeating itself a bit. We've got several more months to watch before the general election now.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about down ballot, because you all just posted a story about Kentucky Secretary of State Mike Adams, who says his primary win was a victory against misdirection and misinformation. And we've talked a little bit about that, election deniers, here during the course of our coverage. So talk to us about that race. And many people thought that maybe Nipper might come a little closer than he did, but this sends a strong signal perhaps to future candidates about the election denying message, and that you can stand for integrity in elections and fairness and the truth and still win as a Republican.
And farther down the ballot, Andrew Cooper Ryder apparently losing that race for treasurer. As somebody I think on your panel said, not a good night for election deniers. But WFPL reporter Roberto Roldan talked to Michael Adams within the last couple of days, just asking him about what he was feeling going into this primary, and if he won, what would that victory signify? And he was saying that this is a vindication for those who believe in the integrity of elections, and one that kind of flies in the face of folks who believe that there's a growing election denial movement. Granted, there is a movement out there for sure of folks who don't believe in the integrity of elections, but certainly still seems to be a bunch of Kentucky's electorate that is out there and willing to support Mike Adams, who has been behind this ever since he was the recent winner of his election. I remember in 2019, after after securing that victory in November, when then Governor Bevin was starting to kind of question the election results. And Mike Adams came out and I believe in an interview told everybody, listen, Republicans, this election was straightforward. We should, after the recanvass, we should fall in line with this. He's been fighting that fight, throughout his years in office, especially through 2020, when this was really thrown into the forefront in the wake of the presidential election, and then COVID, after he, along with Governor Beshear, issued regulations to expand access to the polls when so many people were, quarantining, staying safe at home. So anyway, I think a lot of exclamation points, alarm bells went off for folks when the Herald Leader had that article a week or two ago where Mike Adams said, I could lose this race. Nobody really saw that coming from his challengers. But I think that, once again, this is a vindication of the election integrity line that he was pushing.
Thank you, Ryland Barton. We'll have you on tomorrow night on Kentucky Edition at 6:30, when you'll probably say much of what you just said.
Well, that wraps up my coverage here of the election. God bless you all, and I hope you enjoyed it.